We're going to talk a little bit more about the Baltimore Ravens, making it 9 wins in a row. They go to 11-2 as well. But Howie, you take a look at the San Francisco team, and a lot of people, Jimmy Garoppolo addressed it, have wondered, will he have his big moment? Was today his big moment?
Yeah, I think it was more of a and he talked about the team, and I put it on the team, and I say yes. Jimmy Garoppolo played well. You know, Drew Brees had 5 touchdowns. He has 4 touchdowns. Almost 1,000 yards in total yardage. Only 2 turnovers in the game with all that offense. Pretty impressive. But the thing we talked about in the pregame, how would this young San Francisco team handle this kind of environment, this kind of a game, when you're getting punched in the face early, particularly as they were? Early on, it looked like New Orleans was just going to run away with this thing. And San Francisco just stayed the course and had the explosive plays. And if you like creative offense, today was a great day to watch football, this game.
Yeah, you know, going into that dome, we were just talking about it, to beat the Saints in that dome with the atmosphere, I mean, hats off to the 49ers. And
with them scoring 46 points.
46 points, to be able to hang with them. And that's where Kyle Shanahan, I mean, talk about a master play caller. Both these guys, Peyton, both, but the trickeration and the double reverses and the over-the-top passes. I mean, you got Juszczyk. We talked about it at halftime. He's running an option right here. This stuff is, you don't see most teams doing this type of stuff. And Kyle Shanahan, sometimes he gets the best of them. We talked about it right before half. That maybe he instead of doing too much trickeration, that it can sometimes bite you in the butt. But at the same time, it can go out there and win great games for you. And right now, they are rolling.
4th and 2 to Kittle. Yeah. Have to have it, end of game. And this kid, Tony, you can speak to it better than me. He looks like the best tight end in football
I think he is.
And the reason he's the best tight end is because he blocks.
Yeah, last week he dominated the game. He had 14 yards. 14 yards receiving last week.
Yeah,
he dominated the run game.
And this is what you do when
you know he's getting the ball, by the way.
When you get the ball in open space, if people talk about that face mask, let me tell you something. If this guy did not face mask him, George Kittle probably goes to the house.
He looks like the kid in Pop Warner who has to have the stripe on his helmet because he can't touch the ball because he's too big.
Yeah,
he's just running through
people. He's kind of rangy and you know, he doesn't look like
super
big, but I think the guy is just what incredible athlete. And I think the biggest thing with him, something you can't measure when you look at football players, heart. It's a heart. Mm-hmm. This kid wants to win. He has a heart. He has fun playing a game. You can't measure that.
You know what's going to be fun? If we see a rematch, how creative can these coaches be? I mean, when you put this kind of offense out there, then you come back in and have to play them again. You've got to create an offensive game plan. And Shanahan and I thought Sean Payton today, as you've already alluded to, that was just masterful stuff. Because we expected, I think the over on the game was what, 45 points, and they exceeded that, double it.
Yeah.
You just don't see that when you're expecting great defense. I expected it from both teams to play great defense, and I thought it'd be a low-scoring football game.
Totally wrong. 2 different styles of offense. You know, one is San Francisco with the power run game, the creative play calling, and New Orleans more traditional, maybe throwing in some screen passes, some things like that, but it's more Drew Brees-centric and run game-centric.
Talk about creative offenses, though. Let's switch gears. The Baltimore Ravens.
Wow, yeah.
I mean, this is a team, they're 11-2 right now and starting to separate themselves a little bit. Obviously, we'll see what happens with the Patriots game today. But over in the AFC, and Michael, they've won 9 straight games and back-to-back weeks, huge opponents. San Francisco last week, they did it, and this time on the road against Buffalo.
I mean, this is the team you don't look at and you go, oh, wow, we're going to have all these highlights where they're throwing the ball for 300, 400, 500 yards like we saw today. Here's the guy who threw for Lamar Jackson, threw for 145 yards today. He rushed for only 40 yards today, little bit like 257 yards of total offense. But yet, in throwing for 145 yards, he throws for 3 touchdowns. He is the most efficient quarterback in the system in which they have him play. And on the other end of it, for this team to keep winning, they have to have a great defense. Like, their defense showed up today with 6 sacks on Josh Allen, who's an extremely big and mobile quarterback and not easy to get on the ground. Total team effort. You don't see Baltimore winning because one side of the ball plays well. They all have to play well.
They dictate personnel groupings with their personnel grouping. You know, when they've got 2, 3 tight ends on the field, what package are you putting out there? Most people are in sub-package 60, 65% of the time on defense. They force you to play, particularly down in the red zone. We talk about throwing for, 145 yards, 3 touchdowns. They're so efficient in the red zone because you need to stop their run game. And everyone bites on that.
This is how good this kid is. He has a quarterback. 40 yards rushing. He only had 40 yards rushing today. Most quarterbacks, I mean, that's their season high. Yeah. With those 40 yards, he goes over 1,000 for the entire season.
Wow.
Only the second quarterback in history to do that.
Amazing.
Following Michael Vick, he is approaching his record, one more game probably away from setting the all-time mark for quarterback rushing in a season. Let's go back to the NFC North, though. And, Tony, again, not much change with the standings, but do you feel any more confident in either of these teams today?
You know what? When I look at the Vikings, the Minnesota Vikings, I think Kirk Cousins, if he can continue to play the way he does, and that defense can play the way they're capable of playing, they're loaded with talent, loaded with stars. But when I look at that offense for the Vikings, they can heat up. And this, granted, now Adam Thielen has been out, and he's still out, but they still got Diggs. They got one of the best running backs in the NFL, and Dalvin Cook, and he crunches up yards, which is helping Kirk Cousins. Now, the biggest knock on Kirk is that he hasn't won in primetime games. He can't win the big game. If there ever was a year to do it, I think this is the year. They play the Chargers next week, then the Packers, and then the Bears. So it'll settle itself out.
They've got the
but
Packers
I think they're
at
going to
home.
win. I think they're going to win.
And I think Howie said it earlier in the pregame show, the Packers, he doesn't feel like their defense is built to really finish this up for them. And today, in a lot of ways, they struggled against the Redskins team that came down to a 4th down play that could have ended up in a touchdown had the kid been able to make that catch. But, yeah, I think the Vikings are the stronger of these two teams, but it took them a while to get off and let Cousins be free and get loose and say, hey, we're paying you $84 million. Get out there and let you play the way you want to play for it. But I hope it's not a little bit too late for them, but I think they have a great chance of still winning this division because Green Bay, if anybody's going to lose a game, I think on the way out.
I'm worried about Green Bay. I know they've won 10 games, but, I mean, I'm used to Aaron Rodgers throwing for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns, and today it was Jones, the running back, who's had another great game. I just don't see their offense matching up yet.
Early in the year, they looked like offensively they had a lot of the answers. You know, new head coach.
Hard runner.
Innovative offense, great runner. It was an easier schedule. The season went on. Their defense kind of peaked out a little bit. They got exposed a little bit in terms of their run defense. They've got to go to Minnesota. That could be the game that determines the division. That's where
Tough
it all.
place to play.
And Minnesota's a team that, you know, Tony, you've said it before, and I think we've all kind of said it. They're as complete a team as you could see on paper, but how do you explain the way the defense played a week ago?
Right.
I can't explain that.
The defense has not been there all season long. Going back to the Packers, Matt LaFleur becomes the first Packer rookie head coach ever to win 10 games in his initial season in Green Bay. Congratulations to him. You know, even the 2 games they've lost, San Francisco's a fun team to watch. Let's get down to our final thoughts of the day here. Starting with you, Tony.
I guess I'll start it with San Francisco. Looking at them right now, best team in the NFL. I know Baltimore beat them last week, but I'm telling you right now, Jimmy G, his connection to Emmanuel Sanders, best trade of during the season so far. He showed up big, 157 yards today, but Jimmy G is for real, and I'm glad he finally got to put himself on the map today.
San Fran, of course, the way that they came back and after that big loss last week. But also, you know, Seattle, somehow Seattle's still in this. Seattle, San Francisco, New Orleans seem to be the pride of the NFC with Minnesota and thrown in there somewhere. And on the other end with Baltimore, New England, Kansas City, got to shake the tree, figure out who's going to do what.
I think today was kind of the test for San Francisco. And they passed, obviously, and particularly on offense. That defense got a little bit of a wake-up call.
Tip my hat to John Lynch, bringing in Garoppolo, trading for Emmanuel Sanders, the drafting they done with both. Outstanding job.
You know, Howie, I appreciate your enthusiasm when you delivered that.
Thank you.
More enthusiasm coming from Howie Long next Sunday when we see you again with the pregame show as we wrap up a wild Week 14 on the countdown to the Super Bowl. We're just 56 days away from
feel it, huh?
TB party in Miami.
There it is.
On Fox.
Party!